Hello? Oh, good, it works. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh my God, it's so amazing to see so many people. Perhaps I wasn't quite expecting that, so deep breath. Yeah, thanks very much for coming. So, as you can see from the title, it's maybe rather dramatically called Inside the Belly of the Beast. Yes, from the outside now, it looks like a total beast. When I first joined Shell's corporation as an external contractor, I had an inkling about how bad they were, but that's nothing compared to what I've learned and what I'm going to impart with you this evening. So, yes, on the 23rd of May last year, I very publicly fired Shell as my client and called them out in their own terms, in terms they would understand, i.e. safety and safety performance, for causing immense disregard to the planet and to people. And that if we put it in the context of what they understand, you know, they wouldn't put their own systems under so much pressure that it's going to explode, although sometimes they do that. You know, you use a precautionary principle, which means, you know, you look for the risks, you try and reduce the harms, and hence they're not doing that. So I really called them out of that. I do have a short film. I'm not sure how easy it is to show. It's just the 1 minute. For anyone who hasn't seen it, I'll show that in just a moment. I'll give it a go, but I'm not sure technically how well this is going to work.
My name is Caroline Dennett, and this is my resignation. I've worked with Shell for over 10 years now, empowering tens of thousands of workers to improve safety culture at their work sites, trying to keep people safe, prevent oil and gas leaks and major incidents like the Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. But today I'm quitting because of Shell's double talk on climate. Shell's stated safety ambition is to do no harm. It's called Goal Zero, and it sounds honourable, but they are completely failing on it. They know that continued oil and gas extraction causes extreme harms to our climate, to our environment, and to people. And whatever they say, Shell is simply not winding down on fossil fuels. They're expanding with new exploration and extraction projects against the clear warnings from scientists and dismissing the huge risks from climate change. And I just can't be a part of this anymore. I know I'm privileged to be able to make this choice, and many people working in fossil fuel companies just aren't so lucky. But the fossil fuel industry, it's the past. And if you can find a way out, then please walk away while there's still time. Do it now.
Well, so that did have some dramatic effect, incredibly. We didn't know at the time what impact that was going to have. I think we were very lucky it was a kind of slow news day because it did go ballistic. It was the day before Shell's AGM last year, and I think they were gearing up for knowing that there was going to be, you know, a massive action in London on that day. This was a bit of a curveball for them, really, and yeah, it was quite unexpected. So, yeah, the reasons why I did it is because I kind of just had enough of what I was seeing. I was hearing almost no conversation within Shell about anything relating to climate change, safe transition, energy transformation, decarbonisation, net zero, sustainability, nothing, like nothing. And I had surveyed 20,000 plus employees and contractors in the 10 years that I worked, 11 years I worked for Shell, and I would say less than 1% of the million words of open feedback we collected through the work that we did ever mentioned any of those topics. So that's why I was saying, whatever they were claiming, they're not claiming it anymore, by the way, they've really retracted, but they were kind of clearly not talking about this anywhere in the front line. So how did it feel that day? Yeah, slightly nerve-wracking in the sense of I didn't know what kind of response I was going to get. Maybe it was going to be quite severe, maybe there was going to be legal action from Shell, maybe people were going to be very negative. And also, I had a sense that I was actually about to massively betray every single person that I'd ever asked to tell me what it's like to work at the front line in Shell and their joint ventures. And that really played quite heavily on my heart, actually, because I'd spent 10 years persuading workers and contractors to anonymously trust me with their inner thoughts about how safety culture is and how safety performance is. So I kind of felt this sense of I was really abandoning them, and that made me feel really sad, actually. That did make me feel very sad, because that meant that that opportunity to have that trusted listener who would genuinely take their concerns to management was about to be ended for good. So it wasn't an easy decision. It was definitely the right decision. On that day itself, it was amazing. Like, the response was just absolutely incredible, and I think it has had some impact in terms of other people finding themselves empowered to bring that conversation to the workplace, and also specifically in the oil and gas industry to ask awkward questions, but amongst people like the advertising industry, actually that's where we've seen a lot of change. People who were previously being asked to work on fossil fuel accounts actually being able to say, we're not doing that anymore, we're not going to do your greenwash for you. So yeah, there's been quite a lot of positives that have come out from that.
My name is Caroline Dennett, and this is my resignation. I've worked for Shell for over 10 years now, empowering tens of thousands of workers. My name is...
Okay. So, how did I become involved with Shell in the first place? Because we're not natural bedfellows, actually. This is a picture of Deepwater Horizon in the Gulf of Mexico, which blew up very dramatically and catastrophically in 2010, May 2010 I think it was. That was BP, but it actually could have been any single one of those oil and gas players operating anywhere in the world, and Shell knew that. They got lucky. It wasn't them, it was BP. But they had recognised that it could have been them, and that the things that caused that to happen could be lurking in their operations. And I was approached by a management consultancy working with Shell saying, can you help us to stop explosions? And I thought, no. Like, I know nothing about the oil and gas industry, why would I be able to do that? But actually what they wanted was someone who could write a really honest, quite hard-hitting safety culture survey, basically, that was no bullshit, not trying to, appease management, but really get under the skin of what was going on at the front line to prevent that from happening to Shell. So that's how I kind of come to get involved. I agreed to write a survey for them, to pilot it, and I thought, that'll be it, they'll just give it to some big boys, or they'll take it in-house, but that didn't happen. They actually quite liked the hard analytics, that we give the great deal of honesty that we brought to it. So the main thing that we focused on actually is something called process safety. Process safety, for anyone who's not familiar with the industry, basically means keeping it in the pipe. So one of the reasons why that happened to BP was because they had not been focusing on process safety. They'd only ever been focusing on trip slips and falls, paper cups. Oh, we mustn't, put a lid on your coffee cup, hold the handrail. I'm not mocking those things, people do get injured doing that, but it doesn't result in this. Whereas I think there was recognition now that really a lot of the safety effort needed to go on to prevent this kind of things. So at the time that they asked me to join them, I did have huge reservations for doing that, and here's why I had some of those reservations. So I was super aware that Shell had really dirty business in Nigeria, and they had dirty business in Nigeria for a long time. I was aware of the Ogoni 9, if anyone is not aware of who they are. They were 9 community-based activists who dared to challenge Shell for their terrible pollution in the Niger Delta, in the Ogoni land in particular. and on some jumped up charges, those 9 people, including Ken Sarah, we were previously there, who was the leader of the Ogoni people, were hung in 1995. And I was aware of that, so I was like, why am I getting into bed with this group of corporate nasties when they're capable of doing this? But I thought, I've got an opportunity to do good. You know, they do want to prevent pollution, they do want to prevent explosions and leaks, so okay, I'll give it my best shot, I thought. Unbeknown to me, and this is an astonishing admission for me to make, having worked with Shell for 11 years and primarily done a lot of that work in Nigeria, that is an FPSO, a floating production, storage and offloading vessel, which is on the coast off of Nigeria in the Atlantic Ocean. I have surveyed the people on that FPSO 4 times, and yet it was only about 2 months ago that I learnt that the year after Deepwater Horizon, that vessel spilled an oil leak the size of Belgium, which you can see in that dark shadow there. That was 40,000 barrels of crude oil that went into the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Nigeria. 168,000 people affected across 350 communities. Shell are so good at keeping quiet about these things. 11 years, 4 surveys, and I only became aware of this a few weeks ago. So that's quite bad, obviously, and it does now make, when I look back, it makes me realise that Shell Nigeria were very, very keen to do these surveys, and it's obviously because of that. I didn't know that that happened. They kept that really quiet, but they were very, very keen to have my work to try and understand what was going on. And I believe my work would help prevent those bad things from happening, and I think for a while, maybe it did help. Ultimately it didn't though. So the work that we did was around, safety culture. So by that meaning attitudes, values, behaviours that create the conditions in any given organisation. How do we do things around here, basically? So the purpose of the assessments that we did was really to understand what goes on when no one is watching. What goes on at the dark end of the gas plant, or in the dark corner of the oil rig, or the factory, or the refinery, where management don't go. They don't go there. How's life for those workers in that place? Do they feel safe? You know, are they exposed to risks that are intolerable, and yet they don't feel empowered enough to talk about it? So that's really what we were doing. And Shell has a really, on paper, good, ambitious safety goal, which is they call Goal Zero, which basically means no harm to people and no leaks. Now that's really surprising given what we know that they've been doing, but like they're good at greenwashing, they're kind of good at kind of safety performance washing as well. So yeah, this is really what myself and my team were doing. We were empowering frontline workers to speak up on safety and kind of put their trust in us, that we would then be a conduit for that information and take it to management, and that improvements in safety would be forthcoming. And we did that all over the world, as Greg mentioned. I didn't hardly ever travel there, I have to say. This was not about me going and assessing my opinion of what was going on. This was based on workers filling in very in-depth online or paper-based surveys. So we did do it all around the world, and not just for Shell, but we've had other clients in and out the fossil fuel industry. But by far, Shell was the biggest customer, and within Shell Nigeria were the biggest customer there. And when we look at this map, and I'll tell you what this is in a moment, you'll understand why Shell Nigeria was the biggest customer. That map is from an organisation called NOSDRA, which is the Nigerian the oil spill monitor, basically. They gather all the data about what's going on in the Niger Delta, and in the period between 2011 and 2018, when I was in the throes of trying to prevent spills and pollution, this is why it didn't really work, sadly. 17.5 million litres of oil was spilled in the Niger Delta. An astounding amount, and that was from Shell alone. If we look at all the operators that are operating there in the Niger Delta between 2015 and 2021, we can see that 37.6 million litres were discharged into the land. Where are the headlines? We didn't see the big headlines for any of these. We didn't see the big headlines for Bonga like we did for Deepwater Horizon. You know, it's going on and we know nothing about it. So if you think Shell are bad, times it by 100 or 1,000, because they're actually even worse than that. Yeah. So what changed? Why am I no longer working for Shell? Because it was good money, I admit. You know, I took the dirty dollar for quite a number of years. I did good work, I was committed, I really wanted to represent the workforce. But yeah, what happened really is my awareness. I was aware of pollution, even from the start, but I wasn't really fully aware of what was going on in terms of the planetary systems. Until I joined the Green Party in 2015, and became very active, and I became a local Dorset election campaign manager, and we had a victory. We had Dorset's first Green Councillor. That was in November 2015, much to celebrate. So I was starting, I know something about climate change. Yeah, I know something about greenhouse gases. Yeah, I know something about this. I'm a member of the Green Party, don't you know? I'm knocking on doors, I'm telling people that they need to be, more aware of what's going on. And I'm still working for Shell, I admit it. And then I went to a Heading for Extinction talk in April 2019. And everything that I thought I knew about what was happening in the environment was blown out of the water, because I knew nothing. I knew nothing compared to what I learned from that. The devastation, what's coming our way if we don't act really quickly. So then I got really involved in the Extinction Rebellion. We didn't yet have a local group in Dorchester, Weymouth and Portland, but we'd had a big group in Bridport who'd been to the two rebellions, the one in April 2019 and October 2018. They were the people who gave the talk. But we were gifted a brand new council in Dorset in May of 2019, a unitary authority, and a few of us thought, oh my God, on their first day of the council, we've got to go and do something. We've got to do something big. So pretty much everyone from Dorset who was active came. There was well over 100 people there. We did a die-in. We went into the chamber. I asked a question as to could the council consider declaring a climate and ecological emergency. They took 2.5 hours to discuss whether they could even have a discussion about having a vote. But actually in the end, as you can see, the headlines the next day was yes, they did. They did their larger discussion and they declared a climate emergency. And we were like, wow, this Extinction Rebellion stuff, it really works. Oh my God, it works so good. So we set up a local group, and then from then on I was hooked and doing all kinds of things, including a little Ocean Rebellion action as well down there in Weymouth, where we had plenty of water. And during COVID, so many cruise liners, like 12 a day some days, so it was a great opportunity to do. So by now, any conflict that I had at the start has really, really increased being at Shell. There's a huge disconnect between my values, what I'm seeing, what I now understand to be, heading for a genocide of all of the people and all of the species. That's really having a lot of discomfort for me. So it really made me start to think about what am I going to do with this increasing conflict. So really from here on in, it's the beginning of the end of my relationship with Shell. There were 3 key moments that turned me towards thinking I'm going to go and when I go, I'm going to have as much impact as I possibly can. So the first one actually was in the summer of 2021. I was asked to go back and do a lot of work in Nigeria. Not me personally going there, but they were having incidents. We know that because we've seen the oil spill map that's telling us they're always having incidents. But they asked me to write a new survey, actually a new style of survey for what they call new projects. And by new projects, they mean constructing new oil or gas wells, or extending or expanding an existing one. And I just thought, no, this doesn't sound good. This doesn't sound like you're going in the right direction. Because meanwhile, they've got a new energies business, and they've got a renewables, and they're buying up renewables, and they're doing this, and they're backing hydrogen, which I all knew was total greenwash bullshit. But, come on, really? In the Niger Delta, you are still seeking new licenses. You are still seeking to extract more and more. So I was very, very uncomfortable with that, and I thought, okay, I will do it because you've recognised there is a safety need for that, but this will be the last time that I ever work with Shell, so I thought I will see that through. I had made up my mind. I finished that project in January 2022, and I was thinking, okay, I've still got about a year to run on my contract, so that's good. That's good because I'm still got a contract, so I'm not going to look like some kind of disgruntled ex-contractor who's been turfed out, now turned whistleblower. I can really do something with the fact I've still got an active contract. So I think it was in early April of 2022, last year, I happened to see on a live stream on YouTube or Facebook of the Shell, the XR action in the Shell headquarters, which has now by then had moved to London because they couldn't tolerate the court system in the Netherlands any longer, and the government weren't being so friendly, and it was aimed at insiders. And I saw that jump ship, and there was someone holding up a poster saying, "Do you know something about Shell? Are you an insider? Do you want to be a whistleblower?" And I thought, yeah, I do. I do want to do that. So so that was very motivating, and I contacted the Truth Teller team who were responsible for that action and said, I am an insider, but I'm kind of an outsider. Actually, it's the best of both worlds because I'm not an employee, but I've seen the inside of Shell like no one else has seen the inside of Shell, so I think this will be really useful. And then thirdly, dear Noam Chomsky, who did an amazing Zoom meeting for Just Stop Oil, also just a few days after that jump ship action. And he basically confirmed all that I needed to hear, really, which he kind of just said, you know what, all you can do is to do what you can in the place where you are with the abilities that you have. And I thought, bingo, yeah, that's what I need to do, to have the absolute maximum impact. So we came up with a plan for me to quit, basically. So it wasn't the usual, rah, Shell's just bad. I said, we have to do this based on their safety performance. That is what will hurt them. That is, just someone calling them out just for being, ruiners of the planet. It's speaking their language and doing it that way. So, fast forward, I guess, a little bit. This year. I decided that I would confront Shell full in the face at their AGM this year, because remarkably, in that year since quitting, I heard nothing from Shell. Nothing. Like they never. I was bracing myself for the legal action. I thought they will have me in the court, tie me up, breach of confidentiality, breach of contract, and they would be bound to rights. I did all of those things, but absolutely nothing at all. So they hadn't replied to me. The day I quit, I had sent a very lengthy email to the board of directors saying, why are you doing this to our planet? It's unsafe, etc. And nobody ever got back to me. So I thought, well, I will go and I will confront them at the AGM. So I did. I was invited by Fossil Free London to their extremely well organised and orchestrated action. and decided that the best impact was really to question the board. And I was very much driven by Nigeria injustice and the continued devastation there. So I had waited patiently throughout all the action, which was brilliant at the AGM, absolutely fantastic, about an hour's worth of that in order to speak, because what they were very keen for was people sit down and discuss it in a civilised manner. You know, come up and ask your question in a civilised manner. So following that request, that's exactly what I did. And I presented them with the results of the last survey that I did in the Niger Delta, in their operations in Nigeria, because I did not believe for 1 minute that they were going to give the workers there the resources that were required to be safe. So these are the things I said to them. I said, do you know what? 40% of your own people, your own workers in Nigerian shell operations do not have adequate personnel to conduct operations safely. That's not me saying that. That's the workers saying that. And they're saying that, you know, there's been so much restructuring because they've been annexing a lot of their operations, selling them off basically because they can't sweat any more profit out of them, so they're just selling them off. You know, it's so bad that people are tempted to take shortcuts because there's just not enough personnel. So they're taking safety shortcuts. They're doing things that are really risky, that are risking their own lives. 35% said that you're putting production first and safety second, and that someone actually said that they'd heard of 2 people in the organisation who'd actually, they believed they died, basically they were worked to death. That's what they said, they were worked to death. They died as a result of overbearing workloads. Uncomfortable for the board, no doubt. 35% said basically they're not doing any of the maintenance that they should be doing on safety critical equipment on time, and that 30% just don't trust management to even address their concerns. So with that, we can see why 17.5 million litres of oil have been leaked into the Niger Delta, because this isn't a one-off. They've been saying this for years. They have been saying this for years. So all Shell's messages about it's sabotage, it's the locals, they're bunkering, they're tapping into the wells and the pipelines. Yeah, maybe they are doing some of that, but that doesn't explain 17.5 million litres in a 7-year period. So basically, I asked Rail Sawan, the new CEO, to just, come on guys, can you commit the necessary resources so that people feel safe at work and, you know, you can stop all this messy spills and leaks and fires? Can you do that? You know, can you prevent that loss of livelihood, loss of life, loss of ecosystems, loss of species, loss of biodiversity? And astoundingly, they admitted this. He actually said this. It's a location we've recognised a couple of years ago that the risk reward to operate is no longer tolerable when it comes to onshore oil in Nigeria. Now, in real speak, in everyday language, that basically means we've made a complete mess and we're now walking away from the Niger Delta because we can't squeeze any more profit out of it and we don't give a shit. And that is the truth. They absolutely do not give a shit about Nigeria, and they're pretty much saying we don't give a shit about walking away from oil. And it goes on. It goes on and on and on. Another leak, a huge spill in June this year. That ends people's ability to live. If you just close your eyes for 1 minute and imagine what it would be like if you turned on the tap and oil came out. Imagine for 1 moment what it is like to let a child play out and they fall in a puddle and they fall into oil and they die. Because that is the reality of what's happening in the Niger Delta. Still happening right now, it's happening all the time. So I've become very connected to, that's 30 minutes for me. I've become very connected to frontline activists in Nigeria, supporting them in any way I can, with information, with some finances if necessary, and also working with legal firms in this country, bringing masses and masses and masses of legal actions against Shell through the British courts. So there's a legal firm called V-Day. They are bringing 14,500 individual cases against Shell through the British courts, and clearly I'm sitting on quite some information that I'm helping them to get disclosure on that, so it doesn't have to come from me, it can come from them. So yeah, it's really bad, it's still going on. I mentioned at the start when I first quit, I know I have a huge privilege. I do have a huge privilege. I'm white, I'm British, I'm not from Nigeria, I'm not in Nigeria. It's easy being a whistleblower in those conditions. I have a friend called Chris who's a Nigerian, a great climate activist and educator. He dared to put on LinkedIn a thread about that leak that happened in June, calling out Shell, and he is now not in Nigeria because he has fled for his life to a European country, and that's how bad it is. That's the reality. That is the reality for people in Nigeria. However, there is hope, and I do think that things are about to change. There are so many actions being brought against the fossil fuel industry. Around the world, currently, there are 2,000 live cases being brought against the fossil fuel industry for harms to the environment. So things are really hotting up. This family, the Dewar family they're also from Agoni, they won a case against Shell in the Netherlands. It took 30 years, but they are starting to win cases. People are starting to win cases, which is great to hear. Last week there was an all-party parliamentary group hearing that kicked off called Racism in the Environmental Emergency Inquiry Launch. It was really great. You could attend as a member of the public and watch and ask questions. There were some great attendees there. Lazarus Tamana is the current president of MOSOP, which is the movement for the survival and protection of the Ogoni people. Caroline Lucas, Clive Lewis. So I didn't realise until halfway through that you could actually contribute and ask a question. So I did very close to the end, just chuck this in, and I just said that Shell's operations in Nigeria are corporate murder and corporate grievous bodily harm. And Caroline Lucas summed up by quoting that and saying, I think we can all agree in this panel that they are, and everyone did agree. So that's a parliamentary group now agreeing that Shell are basically corporate murderers and committing corporate GBH, which I don't think that would have happened even maybe a year ago. So I think there is justice coming. This is Ken, and I just think it's such a beautiful thing. Dance your anger and your joys, dance the guns to silence, dance, dance, dance. That someone who was facing what he faced and ultimately gave his life for could have that much positivity. And I do believe that justice for Nigeria, it's finally coming, and the consequences of that justice will ring heavily on Shell, and I feel that in my blood. It is coming. It will be harsh, and it is coming soon. Thank you.